Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is an honor and a privilege to be again among this beautiful community, my dear respected brothers and sisters, to commemorate the martyrdom of Sayyid al-Shuhada Abi Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. And we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us through these blessed night, inshallah, to serve Him at most, at the best as we can do. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا رسول الله صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة يا ليتنا كنا معكم سيدي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. عن سيدنا ومولانا علي بن موسى الرضا عليه السلام أنه قال: رحم الله عبدا أحيا أمرنا. قيل له: وكيف يحيي أمركم يا ابن رسول الله؟ قال: يتعلم علومنا ثم يعلمها الناس، فإن الناس لو علموا محاسن كلامنا لاتبعونا. صدق مولانا علي بن موسى الرضا عليه السلام. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. A striking feature in the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, in the school of Shia Islam, from the time of martyrdom of Abi Abdullah al-Hussein up to date, are the majalis, the assemblies of Ashura. It's an integral point in the sect of Shi'ism. Everywhere you go today, you see that these assemblies are alive and vivid in every town and every city. And through those assemblies and majalis, the individual Shia acquire its knowledge and information. This is the main source of information and inspiration in the school of Shia. The same thing could be said about the school of Sahaba. In the school of Sunnis, again, the majalis, the sermons, the assemblies, especially Friday sermons, play a major role in educating the public, the Muslim individuals. Almost all Muslim individuals acquire their information from their assemblies. The reason, unfortunately, Muslims are less inclined to read books and literature. They find it very difficult, time-consuming, tedious, and sometimes costly to acquire books or read literature. Easier for them to watch and to listen to those majalis. So by default, these assemblies and majalis have become the source of information, the source of knowledge, as well as the source of influence on our behavior, our attitude, and our emotions. throughout the Islamic world, both on the Shia sides as well as on the Sunni sides. Those assemblies, those sermons, whether during the time of Ashura, in the time of holy month of Ramadan, or in the Friday sermons, in both sects, they play major role in shaping our worldviews, our opinions, and our attitude toward each other and toward the world. This is given for fact. Therefore, it is essential that we examine that role and review and assess those assemblies and those majalis in order to enhance them, develop them, reform them. In the past, over the millennium, over the centuries, those have been traditional. We take it as a tradition, as part of our culture to attend these ceremonies. Whether we benefit or not is another story. But just the fact that we participate is to show our adherence to our sects and our loyalty to our religion. Therefore, they need to be really examined and assessed. And Muharram is the best opportunity that we shed some light on them and look at them and have a deep soul searching and find how we should assess those and how we should address the public, especially for us who live in such remote place from the mainland of Islam. Inshallah, during my topic, I will shed light on the role of those majalis, and toward the end, we will talk about the ideal role of such majalis after your big and loud salawat. Probably the best indicator of how the religious discourse in the Islamic religion has shaped and these assemblies have performed, the best indicator for them is our living condition as the Islamic world. How is the affair of the current affair of the Islamic world exists today? That's a best indicator of how those assemblies and sermons are. Because they are the major influencers of Muslim public. We get inspired by them. We get influenced by them. As I said, our opinions are shaped by them. Therefore, whatever the current state of the Islamic world is, that should be a reflective of those assemblies and sermons. When we look at those affairs, the Muslim affairs, do we see a positive thing? Or unfortunately, we see a negative thing? Today, what is the state of the Islamic world? We have almost 55 countries who declare Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah and Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa ala. But what do we see? Here we should have a clear vision and deep soul searching. Do we see something attractive or something repellent? You look at the backwardness, the animosity, the disagreement, the infighting, the sectarian fights. Sometimes even within the sect itself, there is fight, disorganization, shamble, poverty, calamity. All have engulfed the Islamic world. And these are all reflected by, at least partially, we cannot blame everything on those religious sermons and assemblies, but partially they should be responsible. They should have their fair share of blame on that. Take, for example, if you want to evaluate a teacher or an instructor. What is the best way to evaluate him? What is the indicator? The indicator from the exit exams of his students. If the students acquire good grade, all A's and B's, you would consider that this instructor is a fabulous instructor, excellent instructor. But if you see that the students are all failing or near failing grades, that could be very telling of the performance of such instructor. The same thing could be said about the Islamic sermons that we give and assemblies and the religious discourse that the religious leaders give to their public. Therefore, when we see such unfortunate situation, that could be very telling that the discourse is suboptimal. It is not the best discourse. Here are certain examples that I want to review with you. How the misfortune in the Islamic world exists today. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. When you look at the universal human moral values in the Islamic world, of course, I'm not talking about the speeches that are given, for example, here at this beautiful Islamic Center or in North America. I am talking about the religious discourse in the entire Muslim world. When you look at the moral values, the universal moral values, how are they in the Islamic world, in the Islamic countries? Are they very well entrenched and very strong? Take, for example, the concept of a freedom, the concept of tolerance, the concept of a human rights, women rights. Are they strong or they are very loose and weak? Tolerance among each other, coexisting among each other. You see that they are very weak. Some may argue that these are all due to the corrupted regimes of the Islamic world, which is true. But those corrupted regimes, brothers and sisters, those corrupted governments, they are not aliens. They did not come from different planets. They're all homegrown. They're all from their own societies, from their own communities. This is a fact that we should accept and believe in. We cannot use only the government as a scapegoat to criticize them and curse them and bash them and badmouth them because they are corrupt, which they are by the fact. But we have to have a better, deep soul searching to see those governments did not come out of nowhere. Those are the product of the society, of the community. You see that those concepts are very weak in our countries. In addition, some individual virtues. For example, honesty, trustworthiness, integrity, commitment to laws and orders. Again, when you check the Islamic world and Islamic countries, you see them that they are very weak, shallow, not much respect to them. The most important attribute of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi from the beginning of his life, from the time of Jahiliyyah, what they would call him? They would call him as-Sadiq al-Amin, the honest, the most trustworthy person. Has that attribute have been reflected on our deed, on his followers? The Prophet has 1.7 billion followers. How many of his followers have this attribute, as-Sadiq al-Amin? You see that these notions and these concepts are very weak in our society and our community. Why? Because the emphasis in the religious discourse, in these assemblies, in these sermons, are not that much. Probably I am too critical of those sermons, but it's a fact, brothers and sisters. When you are consistent, when you keep repeating things over and over and over again, people will learn it, will take it, will start to, adjust to it and use it in their daily activities. But when you're absent-minded about it and you do not mention it, of course the public also will be absent-minded about it. That's one example. The other example, the lack of interest for knowledge and science altogether. Look at the scientific breakthroughs and advances that take place every day in the world. How much of that development takes place in the Islamic countries? What is the contribution of the Islamic societies towards science and knowledge and technology, especially in the field of applied science and natural sciences? Very minimal, negligible. As an indicator, look at the Nobel Prize winners. You know, the Nobel Prize since 1901 have been given to scientists, those who come up with, new ideas and discoveries and inventions, whether it's in medicine or in chemistry or economy or peace and politics. These are given. Of course, I'm not saying that those people, this committee that oversight the Nobel Prize is very impartial and they look favorably toward Muslim. No, there is no such a thing. But eventually they try to be, having certain objectivity. When you look at through these years, more than 144 of those prizes have been given. How many of those have been received by Muslim scholars and Muslim scientists or Islamic countries? Very little, very few. Cannot be more than 10 probably. That's the maximum Muslims have acquired. When you compare the state of Muslims in the scientific field today, compare it to what it used to be back at the advent of Islam, about 1,200 years ago, 1,100 years ago. A huge difference, like a day and night between the two. Not much emphasis on science and knowledge altogether. How many books are published in the Islamic countries compared to a single country like UK? In the UK, in United Kingdom, the statistics say an average kid, an average school child who goes to school reads about 11 books per year. 11 books. In the Islamic countries, 35 people added together read only one book per year. This is also the problem of our governments. And this is a real cultural issue. This is our societal problem. This is our individual problem that we do not address, but we always blame the evil governments, the corrupt governments and the royals who, preside and have their rulings. The other indicator, the low level of a productivity and efficiency in any field in our Islamic countries. Low level of efficiency, inefficient. If they market something, if they produce something, you see it is not that efficient. Also, low productivity. Very small amount of productivity. Compare it to any field, whether it is industrial, agricultural, marketplace, entrepreneurial, education, political aspect. These two are the dominant features of the Islamic countries. Low efficiency and low productivity. Not much. Does anyone dare to buy anything, any product from any Islamic country? Not much. Compare it today when you go to the market. Look at how many of those products that we see is from Muslim country compared to non-Muslim countries. Why is it so? Why we have been so much backward in these things? And those two indicators tell us a lot, tell us about the quality of life that we live in. When you have low productivity and low efficiency, it means that the quality of life is also low in these Islamic countries. There are two indices. Every year they update them. One is called the Global Happiness Index. It tells you which country their population are happiest or happier or happy compared to the rest. When you look at the list, you see that the overwhelming majority of the bottom list of this index, unfortunately, belongs to the Muslim countries. People are unthankful, ungrateful, unappreciative, and probably for good reasons. Probably their economic state, their financial state is too bad. But the fact is that they are disgruntled. They're not that happy about their life compared to non-Muslim countries. You see, they take the highest ranking while Muslim countries in the lowest. And the other index is called the livability ranking index. It goes for different cities and tells you whether that city is livable or not. Again, you see that the Islamic cities and towns always take the bottom list, or according to one scholar, the first, but from the bottom. This is how we are unfortunate. This is a fact that we should be addressed. Of course, again, I'm not trying to blame everything on the Islamic discourse and religious discourse that we say, but because the fact that it is the most inspirational source for people, it will take its fair share of a blame. Another disturbing indicator, which is worse than any of those indicators, it is peace and tranquility in the Islamic states. How many wars are there today? Except the Ukrainian and Russian war. But look at the major conflicts. In the past 40, 50 years, where did they take place? The majority are in the Islamic countries. Strife, disagreement, infighting, sectarian fight, civil wars. Also among our own religious circles. Those religious circles who have to be closer to Allah, who should be guided by the instructions of the Prophet and the Imams and the Sahaba. You see the animosity, the hatred, and the disagreement among themselves much more than the secular ones who live in the same society. What does that tell us? Tell us, unfortunately, that the Islamic discourse needs a new look, a new reform, a fixation. And Ashura is the best time that we should address these issues. What should we do, brothers and sisters? Of course, a small community like this community or the North American community is not enough to fix the problems of the Islamic discourse, no matter how many times we talk and we practice and those things. It should be all collective. It should be, a concerted effort by the entire Islamic nations to address this important issue. We, the speakers, take the valuable times of the audience. If there are 100, 200 people in one majlis, and I take for 45 minutes, imagine that I have taken 45 minutes of 200 people. Multiply 45 minutes by 200 and see how many minutes I waste for the sake of what? Just to be traditional and regurgitate things that we keep using and saying all over? Or it should be something enlightening. What should we do and how should we address these issues? When you look at the Quran, when you look at Islam, we ask, what is the purpose of Quran? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent us, dispatched the prophets and gave them guidance, as well as the holy books. Chief among them is Quran. What is the purpose? What is the objective of Quran? Quran itself says what is the objective repeatedly in many verses. It says that Quran is an agent that takes the population from darkness toward light, to liberate people from darkness toward light. Alif Ra, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alif Lam Ra, كتاب أنزلناه إليك لتخرج الناس من الظلمات إلى النور بإذن ربهم. In another ayah, هو الذي ينزل على عبده آيات بينات ليخرجكم من الظلمات إلى النور. It's to take us away. Liberate them, liberate us, deliver us from darkness to light. Of course, Quran doesn't mean the physical darkness or the physical light. Rather, it means to take us away from ignorance, from bigotry, from anything that hinders our development and gaining of knowledge, our blindness, our insensitivity. These are the things that are considered to be darkness. And the message of Quran is to take away and liberate people from darkness toward light. And light is symbolized by knowledge, education, literacy, wisdom. The Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that لَقَدْ مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِذْ بَعَثَ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِّنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has done a great favor to mu'mineen who brought them someone among themselves to take them away from darkness. How? Through purification and teaching. Let them know the knowledge and information. This is the whole message of Islam and Quran. The assemblies, the sermons should be the same way. Should take people away from darkness toward light. And this is the message of Ashura. This is the whole mission of Abi Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam, to take people away from ignorance toward guidance. In Ziyarat al-Arba'in, when we salute the Imam, Al-Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, how does he salute his grandfather? In Ziyarat al-Arba'in, says, فَأَعْذَرَ فِي الدُّعَاء وَمَنَحَ النُّصْحِ وَبَذَلَ مُهْجَتَهُ فِيكَ لِيَسْتَنْقِذَ عِبَادَكَ مِنَ الجَّهَالَةِ وَمِنْ حَيْرَةِ الضَّلَالَةِ. He sacrificed his life for what? To safeguard people, to liberate people from ignorance and from misguidance. This is the message of Ashura. How this is implemented? Any religious sermons, any assembly should in fact add up to people's knowledge and information. Anything that does not is not considered to be, something that advocated by Quran or Islam. Number one criteria in any speech, in any talk, is that the audience before and after that speech, they should feel the difference. That they should have learned something. That their knowledge should have been increased. Their information should have been increased. They felt that they are more educated. Short of that, any sermon is considered to be useless. Those sermons should elevate people's education, should increase their knowledge. Unfortunately, we said that people have sensitivity toward reading books. They have allergy toward it. And this is not common in Shia school of thought. Most, Muslim countries have the same syndrome. They don't like to read, despite the fact that the first verses that came to the Prophet, descended on the Prophet, what does it say? اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق. Read. Oh, the Prophet read. Oh, Muslim individuals read. Muslim women read. Muslim men read. How many of us we read? This should be, an exemplary model that always the sermon givers should emphasize on this fact that people should read, should educate themselves, should learn. This is how you would excel when you compare a country and look at the literacy rate of that country, compare it to another country. You see the advancement of the first country is based on the literacy rate. The higher the literacy rate, the better the advancement of that country. This is natural. This is very given as a fact. And those should adhere to that, those who give the sermons. Not only in educating people and giving knowledge. In fact, they should remove any superstitions, any false beliefs, any lies. Many of those sermons, unfortunately, contain many false beliefs, many superstitions, something that are unrelated to fact and to truth. These should be addressed. Those sermons should be contemporary, should concern with the people's affairs and what kind of a problem they run through. Not only, bogged down into history and talking about the historical events and glorifying history. We should address people's current affairs and current problems. Should be contemporary, should be well informed. There is a writer, a physician and a writer. He's a Syrian. His name is Khalis Al-Chalabi. In his column in one of the newspapers, he says that when he was young in his village in Syria, he used to be taken by his father to Friday sermons to attend the Salat al-Jum'ah. He said that in Salat al-Jum'ah, the speaker, the sermon giver, used to have a book written by someone called Ibn Nabat al-Misri. Ibn Nabat al-Misri was a literary figure 750 years ago. He has written a book with 52 sermons specified for Fridays. There are 52 weeks in each year. So he has made 52 speeches and included them in those books. So this sermon giver, using that book 750 years ago to give sermons on each Friday to the people of the village. He said one day he started, during the month of Ramadan, he started to talk about the importance of rituals of Hajj and what do you do in Tawaf, what do you do in Sa'i, what do you do in, stoning the shaitan. All of a sudden he realized that he's in Ramadan, he's not in Hajj. This is how outdated these, talks and speeches are. And unfortunately, when you look at so many of those satellite channels, you see many of those speakers talking about something that is unrelated to people's affairs and current problems. Therefore, those should be addressed. The other important issue is we include in our talks, in our sermons, and this is for a fact, brothers and sisters, we should accept it. We include so many exaggerations and excessiveness, hyperbole. When we want to praise an individual, we talk so much about him, that's only one level to the arsh, wal-'ayadu billah. So much close to the level of the divine. And when we hate someone, we bring him even worse than shaitan. This is how we are. We make up so many narrations and so many discourses in order to convince the public through exaggeration, through hyperbole. And this is not right. In Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warns those people, Ahl al-Kitab. He says, قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ لَا تَغْلُوا فِي دِينِكُمْ. Do not exaggerate in your religion. وَلَا تَقُولُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ إِلَّا الْحَقِّ. Be honest. You want to praise Ahl al-Bayt alayhim as-salam? You want to raise their level in the views of the audience? Be authentic. Be genuine. You do not need to make up stories. Ahlul Bayt do not need to be elevated, to have made up stories and fictions and superstitions in order to be, praised by the public. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has praised them. You just tell their lifestyle, that should be enough. In the same way as we attack their enemies. We badmouth them, we use, all kind of denigrating things against the enemies. This is out of love. Of course, many of us thinking that we are showing love to our imams in this way, but this way is not right. Here is Al-Imam Al-Rida alayhi salam, has his beautiful words that I recited at the beginning. The man asked the Imam, or the Imam alayhi salam starts, says, Rahimallah abdan ahya amrana. May Allah bless that person who revive our affair. They ask him, how your affair is revived, Ya ibn Rasulullah? How we can help? He says, يَتَعَلَّمْ عُلُومَنَا. We have abundance of knowledge. But the problem is that you people do not read. Do not search for those information, for those knowledge. But there are abundance, wealth of information that the Imams have left as their legacies for us. It says, يَتَعَلَّمْ عُلُومَنَا ثُمَّ يُعَلِّمُهَا النَّاسِ. Learn those knowledge and then teach others. فإن الناس لو سمعوا لو علموا محاسن كلامنا. If people learn about what we say, at what, lights we give to people, what kind of enlightening we give to people, they will follow us. Two important features that the Imam stress upon. Number one, he used the word nas, meaning that Ahlul Bayt are not an exclusive club only for Shias, not only for Muslims. They are blessing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has dispatched them for the entire world. Do not make them only, and exclusively for us. They're for everyone, meaning that the knowledge of Ahlul Bayt, the behavior of Ahlul Bayt, the words of Ahlul Bayt applicable anywhere to anyone. Throughout the centuries, throughout the history. This is how Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Prophet and his progeny to be a mercy to the entire world. They're not only limited to us or to Muslims or to Eastern cultures. So nas, whoever, whether they are in West or in East, they hear about the message of Ahlul Bayt, they naturally embrace them. And then the Imam makes an equation, a mathematical equation. It says, if people listen to our talk and our knowledge, they naturally follow us. There is an inescapable result. Definitely they will follow us. But the problem is that how you present it to others, how you teach others about the knowledge of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. Why the knowledge of Ahlul Bayt penetrates every heart? Because it has a quality that others don't have. That this knowledge is considered to be light, nur. You see, Al-Imam Al-Hadi alayhi salam in Ziyarat al-Jama'a says, كلامكم نور وأمركم رشد ووصيتكم التقوى. Your talk is like a light. Imagine the severest darkness, complete darkness, total darkness. I don't know how to explain this. But light a single candle. Which one will win? The darkness will win or the candle? Eventually that candle has, no matter how tiny is the light, will win over the complete darkness. The words of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam are like a nur. They penetrate. Look at their word of supplication, starting with Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Look at his Nahj al-Balagha. As followers who we marvel all the time about following Ali ibn Abi Talib, how many sermons we memorize or learn or understand? How many sermons are there in Nahj al-Balagha? Do we know? Does an average Shia know? Have we ever acquainted ourselves, let alone others, that we told them about this treasure? Not much. Not much. Look at his sermons in Nahj al-Balagha. Khutbat al-Muttaqeen, Khutbat al-Jihad, Khutbat al-Shakhshaqiyya, the best eloquent possible. Any speech is made by Ali ibn Abi Talib. Ibn Abi al-Hadid, who's not a Shia, he's a scholar. He said that the word of Ali ibn Abi Talib, دون كلام الخالق وفوق كلام المخلوق. One word. The word of Ali ibn Abi Talib is below the word of God, but it is much higher than the word of his creatures. This is how the Words of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Look at his supplications. Dua Kumail, Dua al-Sabah, Munajat al-Sha'baniyah. Does anyone can recite and tell in such eloquency, in such vibrancy, the way that Ali ibn Abi Talib does? Look at the words of Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam. Look at the words of al-Hussein alayhi salam. Look at Dua Arafah. Dua Arafah, when you recite it, gives you a complete anatomy of the upper limbs of the human being 1400 years ago. Starting right here from brain all the way toward heart and limbs. And that is Al-Imam al-Hussein in Dua Arafah. Look at Al-Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam in his treatise. He has unprecedented. He preceded the world 1400 years ago by writing and stating the treatise of right, Risalat al-Huquq. More than 50 rights are included in Risalat al-Huquq of Zayn al-Abidin. How many of that we memorize, we learn, and we tell others that our others, are informed about them? How many of those? Look at the debates of our Imam, the debate of Al-Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam with the monk, with the Christian monk. The debate of Al-Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, Al-Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, with different, various leaders of different sects in the Islamic faith, as well as other religions, the Jews and the Christians. They're all narrated in the books. The debate between Al-Imam al-Jawad, an 8-year-old boy, with Yahya ibn Aktham, the supreme judge at the time of Al-Ma'mun. That a beautiful debate between the two. These are all treasures. How much of those we have learned and how much of those are given to others? Their supplication, the word that they talk to their Lord. These eloquent words. I don't have, I'm short in terms and vocabulary to describe these beautiful statements and phrases of our Imams. How many of those we learn and how many of those we tell others? It is incumbent upon every, sermon giver is to enlighten others, to enlighten himself or herself as well as others with these words of the Imams alayhim salam and the Prophet, peace be upon him. So these are one area. The other area that we should consider that the way of salvation and happiness is not only akhirah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to be happy in this life. He wants you to live a good life in this life. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً. Therefore, these sermons should address our management of our life here. How should I manage my family? How should I manage my affair? How should I manage my business? How should I manage my health, my body? What should I eat? What should I, wear? What is best for me? It is not only related to akhirah and adhab and hur al-ain and, and jahannam and those things. These should be all addressed in this life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to be an affluent, wealthy, good, and with a very respectful life. You see, always when the Almighty talks about Iman, الَّذِينَ يُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةِ, then mentions يُؤْتُونَ الزَّكَاةِ. Give charity. Most of the time. When he mentions the rituals, among these rituals is the charity giving. I ask you, who gives the charity? The poor gives the charity? Allah wants and anticipate that every Muslim becomes an affluent person, a wealthy person, so he can assist others. Give charity, give zakat. Otherwise, zakat does not find any meaning. If we are all poor and neglect the life and only concentrate on our akhirah. These are the things that our discourse should include, especially during the time of Muharram that we have so much gathering. And finally, and not the least, is that these sermons and these discourse should bring harmony and coexistence and tolerance among Muslim brothers and sisters. Different sects, they should coexist among themselves. They should have harmony among themselves. Look at Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam in his word on the last day of his life, when he gives his advice to his children. He says, صلاح ذات البين أفضل من عامة الصلاة والصيام. You just make peace between two individuals, two brothers, two sisters, is better than your entire rituals. Salat was siyam. How many prayers you did, how many fasting you observed. You just bring peace and bring two individuals together at peace. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you much more than those rituals. Why? Because the essence of life, the essence of religion is peace. It's to have peace with others. This is only two individuals. Imagine if two nations get together and are brought together. This is the message of Ashura. This is the message of our Imams. And finally, any speech, any word, any sermon that we give, whether we are Sunni or Shia, we should always be thankful and grateful to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. If it were not Rasulullah, where were we now? Everybody had an idol and we would worship idols. Who made us all Muslims and faithful? It is all Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. How should we be thankful to the Prophet, peace be upon him? We should sympathize with him. How do we sympathize with him? When we mention his beloved Hussein, his grandchild Hussein. That is the best way we sympathize with the Prophet. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses everyone, advises everyone. Says, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. The Prophet doesn't want anything from you. Doesn't need anything from you except one thing, is that you show love and affection to it. His progeny and his children. And chief among them is Abi Abdullah al-Hussein. Today I was very much disheartened, saddened to hear that the Muslim community in Orange County have celebration on the 10th and 11th of Muharram for Eid al-Adha. This is how we reward Rasulullah. Today, tomorrow when we face the Prophet and we told him we celebrated Eid al-Adha right on 11th of Muharram, on the tragedy of your grandson. This is how we reward the Prophet. This is how we fulfill the ayah that says, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. And then we are anticipating that the Prophet intercede in our behalf. The Sha'ir says, لو رسول الله يحيى بعده قعد اليوم عليه للعزاء. If Rasulullah is resurrected again, he will sit as a tragedy. He will grieve Hussein in such day. Listen to Al-Imam Al-Sadiq alayhi salam. He says, ما من عين أحب إلى الله من عين بكت ودمعت على الحسين. Allah would not love that eye as much as that eye who wept and cried for Hussein ibn Ali. Then he continues, the Imam. He says, وما من باك يبكي إلا وقد وصل فاطمة. This is how you appreciate Fatima. This is how you say thank to Fatima. وأسعدها عليه. Make Fatima happy on that day. ووصل رسول الله وأدى حقنا. If we have any right on you, any favor on you, this is all compensated when you participate and mention Abi Abdullah al-Hussein. Al-Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam says, إِذَا هَلَّ هِلَالُ مُحَرَّمْ نَشَرَتِ الْمَلَائِكَ قَمِيصَ الْحُسَيْنِ. Once Muharram shows up, the malaika, the angels, wave and spread the shirt, that bloodied shirt of Abi Abdullah al-Hussein. That is all bloodied with his blood. He says, فَنَرَاهُ نَحْنُ وَمَنْ أَحَبَّنَا بِالْبَصِيرَةِ. We all see with our hearts, we see that shirt, that bloodied shirt on day of Ashura. الإمام الرضا عليه السلام tells ابن شبيب: يا ابن شبيب إن كنت باكيا على شيء فابكي على الحسين ابن علي. If you want to weep for something, then weep for Hussein ibn Ali. Why ibn Rasulullah? What has happened? He says that he was butchered, he was killed. فإنه ذبح كما يذبح الكبش وقتل من أهل بيته 18. 18 people among his household have been massacred. لا ما لهم في الأرض شبيه. None had any resemblance on the face of this planet. Al-Imam al-Rida calls upon the poets to come and mention Hussein, eulogize Hussein. Among them was Da'bil al-Khuza'i. Da'bil comes and starts his recitation, says: مدارس آيات خلت من تلاوة ومنزل وحي مقفر العرصات ديار علي والحسين وجعفر وحمزة والسجاد ذو الثفنات. The Imam starts weeping. He tells Da'bil, wait. He calls upon the woman, his wife and children. The women all sit behind the curtain. Then he tells Da'bil, recite again. Da'bil recite till he get to that point. He says: أفاطم لو خلت الحسين مجدلا. Oh Fatima, if you see Hussein all decapitated, mutilated on the river bank of Karbala, وقد مات عطشانا بشط فراتي، إذا للطمت الخد فاطمة عنده وأجريت دمع العين في الوجنات. At that time the Imam al-Rida started beating his forehead. We tell him: Ya ibn Rasulullah, upon hearing the story you started to beat your head. What about your Aunt Zainab? How did she see her brother on the day of 11 of Ashura, or 11 of Muharram? She looked at the decapitated body of her brother. She said: أأنت ابن والدي أأنت أخي. Oh my beloved Hussein, is it your body that is decapitated and crushed with its bone crushed? Sukaina asked her: Amma, whom are you talking to? Who's this dead body? He said: this is your father. Sukaina threw herself right on the body of her father. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك وأناخت برحلك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين ورحمة الله وبركاته.